The trio that comprised Team 7 knelt on the forest floor. The brief encounter with the Rain, Nin had been a bit of an eye-opener to the group. The bound and gagged ninja that was lying unconscious several meters away gave testament to a fact that both Sasuke and Sakura had never really acknowledged before. Naruto was stronger than he let on. It was Sasuke who had initially exposed the enemy ninja after the blonde genin had gone to answer the call of nature. A brief exchange of taijutsu and the Housenka no Jutsu from the last Uchiha had ensued. It seemed pretty cut and dry after that to both of the remaining members of the rookie genin cell. Until the Nin had dissolved into water. Mizu Bunshin. Sakura had cried out, even as Sasuke was scanning the area with his Sharingan. When he found he couldn't see the Nin, he had leapt up believing an underground Doden Jutsu was coming. Instead, a hard boot to the head was his reward. Sakura had cried out as her crush came crashing down. The Nin glared at her, and leapt towards the pink-dressed girl. A kunai in hand ready to deliver a killing blow. Fuuton. K's Gyorai no Jutsu. Wind release. Wind torpedo technique, a familiar voice cried out. A blur of chakra-enhanced wind slamming into the attacking rain shinobi. Sakura had watched, somewhat awestruck, as the nin was sent careening into a tree, his outfit shredding in places, and cuts appearing on the exposed areas of his skin. She was briefly thankful nothing embarrassing had been exposed, while her inner self was demanding a similar technique be used on Sasuke so she could finally answer some important questions. The kunoichi turned to see her blonde teammate helping a slightly dazed Sasuke to his feet, even as the Uchiha heir gave him a look of mixed jealousy, awe, and curiosity. She made her way over to the now unconscious Nin, pulling out some of her wire and binding his arms and legs in a gyaku ebi tie. She pulled one of the looser pieces of cloth off his arm, and made a makeshift gag to keep him quiet. Silently, she thanked the kami that those lessons that the kunoichi were forced to take in their last year at the academy actually came of use. She had then proceeded to check over her friends, before finally voicing the question she was sure Sasuke also had. "Naruto, what was that?" she asked. "I've never seen you." "It's a clan jutsu," he replied, his crystal blue eyes darkening. "I can't do Kaden worth a damn, but a friend said I'm pretty good with food and—" "Is that one of the Uzumaki clan jutsus?" Sasuke asked. "We know you have a clan now." "I don't," Naruto replied, glaring at his rival. "I am not now, nor will I ever be a member of the Uzumaki clan." You're declaring yourself Ronin?" Sakura gasped, but Naruto, such an act could ruin any chance. "Hokage Gigi already knows and agrees with me." Both of his fellow genin gasped, before Sasuke glared at him. "So, you just throw away your clan?" he asked, his voice going cold in anger. "I knew you were Adobe." Naruto glared right back. "I didn't throw them away, Teme," he replied. "They threw me away, 8 years ago." Sakura's eyes widened, while Sasuke's narrowed. "Tell us the truth, Naruto," Sakura asked. "I can see hatred in your eyes. I've never seen that before." She glanced away. "It's scary." Naruto sighed. "Look, I don't want to talk about this in the middle of a test," he said. "After this round is over, I'll tell you about it." "I promise." Both of his teammates nodded. Naruto and Sakura went to gather up the scattered kunai and shuriken, while Sasuke searched the nin for anything of use. The Uchiha heir had to fight the urge to grin as he found the Kai scroll they needed among the nin's possessions. "HNN, and I called Naruto Adobe," he thought as he placed the scroll in his pouch. He turned to his team. "He had what we needed, so let's go to the tower," he said. "We should beat most of the other teams, which will allow us to rest and prepare for the next part." He received nods from his teammates. "Right then, let's get moving." The trio made to stand up, only to find themselves seemingly pinned down under a murderous chakra. "Nani?" Sakura asked, her voice trembling. What is this chakra?" Naruto was the only one of the three who was able to make it to his feet. "Sasuke," he growled out, even as he strained himself against the killer intent permeating the air. "Can you see who's doing this?" Sasuke managed to nod, motioning with his eyes to the far left. Naruto, with great force of will, managed to pull out a kunai, and glared at the area Sasuke had indicated. "Whoever you are, come on, out. I'm gonna kick your ass." Coo 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 coo. a silky-sounding voice carried through the clearing they were in. Impressive, Naruto-kun. Not many Chunin or even Junin are capable of shrugging off my Kanashibari no Jutsu. You definitely inherited the stubbornness of your mother's clan. The pale Kusa nin from the start of the exam walked into view, smirking at the obviously enraged blonde. Sasuke and Sakura were surprised at the level of anger Naruto emitted at the mention of the word, mother. I'm sure Kagura Dono would be most pleased at your obvious improvement. Naruto smirked. Oh no, suddenly I'm respectable. He laughed, surprising his teammates, while making subtle motions to Sasuke to break the jutsu. I guess I'll just have to put dye in the ladies' hot springs again. Sakura blanked, then scowled at the blonde. That was you, she cried out, suddenly leaping to her feet as if the Kanashibari had never been cast. Sasuke found himself free as the sudden surge in killer intent from Sakura broke the jutsu holding him down. Naruto no baka. Ino and I were orange for a week. Naruto's face fell. But I thought you looked good like that, he complained, cringing at the expected blow. The strange enemy chuckled again, before calling out. As amusing as this is, he spoke up, perhaps it's time to fight. His hands flipped through a few quick seals, ending on Ryu, dragon, a new jutsu for you to learn, Naruto-kun. And tell your clan, Orochimaru, said hello. Futon. Daitapa. Wind release, great breakthrough. Naruto cried out as the gust of wind crashed into him with all the force of a jackhammer, the impact sending him flying through the clumps of leaves behind him. He vaguely heard Sakura and Sasuke crying out for him, but could do nothing as he flew through the forest. Meanwhile, Sasuke turned a hard glare at the strange ninja before them. You'll pay for that, he growled, the tomos of his Sharingan spinning rapidly as if in response to his rage. While he would be the first to admit that Naruto was an annoyance more than a help at times, over the past few months as his teammate Sasuke had come to respect the enigmatic blonde. The pair of them were more alike than either cared to admit. Lonely, angry, and stubborn beyond belief. The pair may as well have been twins. Now his new brother was hurting, and that Sasuke could not let stand. His hands blurred faster than he had ever menanged before, the Tora seal coming naturally to him as he breathed in the air needed for his technique. Kaden. Housenka no Jutsu. A series of fireballs flew from his mouth, even as he began tossing shuriken from his thigh holster into the blasts. The strange ninja, who had called himself Orochimaru, grinned even as he ran through his own seal sequence. Sweden. Teppo Dama. He called out, launching a series of water blasts to cancel the fire out. His eyes widened in almost gleefulness as he noticed the hidden, second attack of Sasuke's jutsu. Impressive, he called out, even as he dogged the rain of metal. Your jutsu usage is suburb, you really are his brother, aren't you? He felt a small twinge of disappointment at the sudden look of rage that ghosted across the Uchiha heir's face. The boy's anger could be a problem, but also an advantage for Maijuin. Sasuke rushed at the nin, his hands and feet flying in the taijutsu style his clan was famous for. His form was perfect, his speed was sublime, his power was incredible given his age. It was all so utterly useless. A swift spin kick sent him flying, crashing down on a limb. Orochimaru smirked, then began to rush towards him, only to receive a surprisingly strong kick to his side from the kunoichi he had all but forgotten was there. You stay away. Sakura cried out, her hands flashing through a quick seal sequence, ending on Nezumi. Orochimaru smirked as he recognized the signs of the low-level genjutsu, Narukumi no Jutsu. He didn't even bother forming the Tora symbol, he just surged his chakra and broke the technique before it took hold. He spun around and caught the girl by her neck, lifting her from the ground. I'm mildly amused, young flower, he chuckled, staring into her frightened eyes. That was a superb thrust kick you gave me. I was reminded of my old comrade, Tsunadeheim for a moment there. His grin changed then, and Sakura felt a chill reach deep into her bones. Yes, you could be useful later as well. His head surged forward, and Sakura's world exploded into a haze of bright color, pain, and then darkness. Orochimaru chuckled, then cried out as he felt a foot lodge itself in his stomach. He glanced down, noting the fact that Sasuke had once again managed to stand, and his Sharingan was blazing in fury. Excellent, his Uchiha blood has begun to boil, the potential of this boy is staggering. The force of the kick hurled him across a gap between trees, and he grunted as his back was introduced to a particularly hard oak. He felt himself sliding briefly, before a sudden tightness across his chest forced him to come aware. He grimaced as he saw the wires trapping his arms against his sides, even as he noticed Sasuke plant a triple set of kunai into the limb he was standing on. The wires ran to the circlets on the blades, and Orochimaru couldn't help but be awed by what was happening. Even Itachi didn't master this until after he was 2 years older than Sasuke. He thought, the Sharingan windmilled triple attack. Sasuke paid the sudden grin on the enemy ninja's face no mind as he ran through the seal sequence for his most powerful Kaden jutsu. For Sakura, for Naruto, he thought. His hands paused on the final 2 seals, Ryu and Tora, gathering and focusing the chakra even as he inhaled a deep breath. Kaden. Ryuha no jutsu. He cried out, exhaling and blowing the giant surge of flame at the bound enemy. What he didn't expect was another voice to call out a jutsu as well. Fuuton, Atsugai. A surge of wind raced through the dragon's flames, fanning them and causing them to surge. The flames raced along the wires, rushing over and around the bound Orochimaru, who screamed in pain as the nearly white-hot fire surged around him. Sasuke turned to where the winds had come from, and he breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Naruto standing there next to Sakura, his hands still clasped together in the Ryu seal, signifying his completion of a futon technique. Once again, Sasuke had to wonder just how strong his teammate really was. He noticed something then, which strangely enough, chilled him even more deeply than Orochimaru had. Naruto's strange, whisker marks were darker now, and wider than before. His mouth was set in a horrible snarl, and his teeth, for a moment, Sasuke was sure they looked like fangs. It was his eyes, however, that were the most disturbing. Gone was the crystalline blue the blonde was famous for, instead, those blue eyes that usually held some illusion of idiotic happiness and cluelessness. His eyes were red, and slitted. It was almost like a cat, or a fox. "You hurt my friends," the blonde growled at spot where Orochimaru had been. Sasuke turned, and almost gasped at the sight. The man was practically unscathed, but his face, it was almost melting off. Indeed, the man replied, his right hand sliding over his Hite-8, revealing an Auto symbol instead of the Kusa one as before. A test really, and I must admit, all 3 of you are impressive. I think the Uzumaki clan will be most intrigued to learn of your strength, Naruto-kun. His eyes, now revealed to be golden and slitted like a snake's, were practically dancing with sadistic mirth. I see you can use its chakra, combined with your clan's skills. You will indeed make a formidable opponent one day. But what is this murderous chakra? I know the Ninetales power, this is like it, but it's still human-like. What is this rage? Sasuke gasped as the strange ninja suddenly appeared before Naruto, his tongue wrapped around the boy and holding him aloft. His left hand lifted Naruto's orange jacket up, revealing the boy's stomach and a strange black image that was upon it. Yes, I see, Orochimaru mused as he studied the seal, so this is the sealing array Arashi-kun used. I've never seen one so complex before, really, such things are more Jiraiya's specialty than my own. In time, once you truly learn to control the power of the Kyuubi, you'll be stronger than me, but for now, you're merely in my way. His right hand began to glow, as purple flames danced along his fingertips. Fuin Jutsu. Gogyo Fuin. He cried, thrusting his hand into Naruto's stomach, causing the boy to scream in pain. Sasuke watched in horrified fascination as Naruto's face reverted to the state it was normally, before the blonde slipped into unconsciousness. What did you do to him? The dark-haired boy cried out. A simple seal, my boy, the sadistic ninja chuckled, before he vanished and then reappeared behind the stunned Uchiha Saiyan. Sasuke cried out as he felt a painful stab in his neck, before a burning and gut-wrenching sensation began washing over him. Now your seal, on the other hand, well, when you want to know more about it, come see me. He vanished, leaving Sasuke to his cries of pain. He screamed for a long time. Sometimes, she missed her country. Oto was a good place to become strong, but it lacked the wild mountains of Tsuchi no Kuni. Instead, she chose to defect, and so got saddled with 2 idiots. She glanced at her teammates, fighting the urge to snort at Zaku's bluster and Dosu's sadism. Being one of the few kunoichi in Oto, She often found herself garnering the unwanted attentions of the men in from the village, though the pair before her could hardly be called men. She idly recalled the few days she had actually been an Iwa kunoichi. In her home country, kunoichi were rarely ever allowed out in the field unless it was on an espionage or a seduce and destroy mission. She would likely have been trained as a courtesan for the Earth Daimyo's court or for some high-end brothel for the visiting dignitaries. The thought made her want to puke. She knew her younger sister Himitsu was likely now serving as a whore in her place, but the brat had never been someone she cared about anyway. As far as Tsuchi-kin was concerned, watching out for herself was all that mattered. That was why she escaped with Tayuya and Karen when they had fled. She would not sully herself just because the Tsuchikage was a misogynistic pig. When Orochimaru had found them, and took them in, it was almost like a dream. Finally, they were being taught how to be true ninja, and not porcelain dolls. Karen had demonstrated great skill at medicine, and was rushed into the new medic nin program. Tayuya, as the strongest, had earned a place with the Sound Force Genjutsu specialist. Kin had shown a real talent at hand-to-hand combat and marksmanship, making her the perfect front-line fighter. Still, why did I have to get Bandage Boy and Mr. Blowhard as teammates? She bemoaned to herself. Zaku's air cannon arms certainly made up for the lack of skill he had in all other areas, like brains for instance. And Dosu's melody arm was useful for many different things, but his sadistic yet overly cautious nature held them all back. He took his time gauge any advantage an opponent might have, but would torment them for too long once he was sure he had their number. That guy is going to get himself killed soon. I just hope I'm there to see it. We have a visitor, Dosu spoke up suddenly. Zaku immediately was on guard, his chakras surging through his arms even as Kin pulled a group of senbon from her thigh pouch. Ku. I see your sense of hearing continues to grow stronger, Dosu-kun. A silky voice came from the darkness. Kin had to forcibly repress the shudder that wanted to crawl up her spine. Somehow, Orochimaru's voice always made her shiver, and it was never in a good way. Orochimaru-sama, Zaku exclaimed, dropping on one knee. Kin barely resisted snorting again. Brown noser, she thought. At ease, Zaku-kun. The snake Sanin chuckled. I have a job for the three of you, a mission different than what I told you that you'd be doing before. Kin frowned at that. You said we were to kill that Uchiha kid, Orochimaru-sama. She spoke up, what's changed? I thought you wanted him gone. Orochimaru smirked at the dark-haired girl. It should be interesting to see her reaction to this information, he thought. The presence of the Uzumaki clan in these exams has altered my plans somewhat, he replied. I need you three to gauge the abilities of the three Uzumaki from the Fire Capital. I have already dealt with Sasuke and his team, they are worthy of living. The other three however, well, Kin-chan, I should think you'd enjoy tormenting them more than anyone here. Why would Kin want to hurt them, Orochimaru-sama? Dosu asked, glancing at his female teammate. Kin-chan is originally from Tsuchi no Kuni, the Sanin elaborated. I understand your father died in battle against the Yondaime Hokage, correct? Yes, Kin acknowledged warily. What does that have to do with these Uzumaki brats? The Yondaime was a member of the Uzumaki clan through marriage, he answered, drawing a sharp gasp from the girl. Hook, he thought. The Uzumaki are always proud to proclaim how he thrashed that legion of Iwa Nin in the last great battle. The girl's hands clenched tightly, and a drop of blood made its way down her palm from thanks to her nails piercing the skin. Line. I know for a fact that the clan heir, Uzumaki Taro, is the nephew of the Yondaime's widow Kagura, he continued. He's well trained, but lacks actual battle experience. Then I'll be happy to give him some, Kin finished, her heart warming at the thought of causing the family of her father's murderer pain. Sinker. Don't eliminate them, he instructed. I want to see them in the finals. I have my own grudge against the Uzumaki clan, and a plan is already set to truly make them hurt. You'll see what I mean in the next stage. His hands came together in the Hitsuji symbol, before he vanished in a plume of purple flame. Remember, they can be hurt, but not eliminated. I want them to suffer. Kin glanced at her teammates. Let's find those punks, she all but growled out. For once, I'll be the sadistic one, I want their blood. Zaku and Dosu nodded, the former smirking while the latter merely patted his gauntlet. The three exchanged a brief nod before leaping into the trees. They had a mission to complete. Sakura groaned as she came to. the light streaming through the leaves almost fanning the flames of the headache she was experiencing. She clenched her eyes shut against the pain, but eventually had to force herself to open them. She slowly struggled to her knees, wincing as her skull protested against the act. Once she had gotten her bearings, she glanced around, searching out her teammates and praying that they were all right. Naruto was easy to spot, of course, his orange jumpsuit standing out against the dark green foliage of the trees and bushes around them. She crawled over to her loudmouth friend, reaching out a hand to check his pulse. She was relieved when her fingers detected a strong, steady beat at his neck. He's just out cold, she thought. That ninja must have hit him pretty hard. She slapped his face lightly, trying to stir him awake. After the fourth slap, the blonde-haired boy groaned, his blue eyes opening and gazing blearily into Sakura's green orbs. He coughed slightly before struggling to his knees as well. Ugh, he groaned, what happened? That freaky ninja? He must have knocked you out, Naruto, the pink-haired girl explained. I just came to myself. She reached into her pouch and pulled out a small bottle of aspirins, dropping 2 into Naruto's outstretched hand before taking a couple herself. What happened? The last thing I remember was that scary ninja giving me a headbutt before everything went blank. She barely had time to blink before Naruto was fussing about her head, checking for injury. Naruto smiled again at that, then his face turned serious as he started scanning the area. His eyes widened when they landed upon the crumpled heap nearby. Sasuke! He all but shouted, leaping to his feet and running over to him, Sakura close on his heels. Together, the pair checked over the Uchiha heir, noting that aside from the bruising and cuts gained during the battle with Orochimaru, Sasuke seemed to be perfectly fine. When Sakura put her hand on his forehead to check his temperature, however, she was forced to cry out. He's burning up, she muttered. He's got to have a temperature of at least 105 degrees. Naruto stared at her blankly. Is that high? He asked. Sakura gaped at him, causing him to blush in embarrassment. I don't think I've ever had a fever before. None of the doctors at the hospital ever said I did the times I was there. Sakura frowned. Even she knew that temperature checks were standard procedure at hospital. How could Naruto have never known if he'd ever had one? She quickly filed that away for later. Whatever, she replied. Listen, we need to find some shelter and water to treat our wounds. I'll take Sasuke down to the ground while you go get some water. We'll meet back at this spot in an hour. Should I try to get some food too? He asked. I think we could both use something to give us some energy, and Sasuke could probably do the same once he wakes up. If he wakes up, Sakura's inner voice muttered, though she paid it no mind. It was not the time to argue with herself. Yeah, that's probably a good idea, she said. Don't take too long though. If you can't find anything like fish or whatnot, we'll just have to make do with the ration bars I brought. Gah, Naruto grimaced, sticking his tongue out. I hate those things. We all do, Naruto, she replied, reaching down and lifting the Uchiha heir up by his shoulder. That's when she saw something strange. Naruto, take a look at this. The blonde genin moved over, glancing at the area Sakura was staring at. At the junction where Sasuke's neck met his shoulder, a strange black mark was set in his skin. Weird, Naruto muttered. It's like the Tomo in Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke's Sharingan. He didn't have this before the fight, Sakura muttered. That guy, he must have done this to him. Well, we can't deal with it now, Naruto replied, wincing slightly as he rubbed his stomach. Let's do what we agreed on. You take care of Sasuke and I'll go get some food and water. If he doesn't wake up by midday tomorrow, we'll take him to the tower as he is. There are bound to be medics there. Sakura was surprised at Naruto's insightfulness, but nodded anyway. It was yet another mystery about the blonde boy she had come to call her friend for her to unravel. The blonde nodded back, then leapt down from the branch, and began making his way through the forest. Sakura carried Sasuke down, finding a hollow section of roots to duck under. After she laid him down, she proceeded to layer the area with traps, as well as a subtle genjutsu. It would cause people to not pay attention to this spot unless she allowed it. Once again she gave a silent thank you to that strange Anbuku no Ichi that seemed to follow Naruto sometimes. She wondered again why the lady did that, but shrugged it off as she had more important things to take care of. Yugo leapt through the forest with 2 of her Anbu partners. She had immediately volunteered to enter the forest once she heard that Anko had gone in after her rogue sensei, the snake Sanin Orochimaru. While she had never been close to the former disciple of the traitor, Yugo respected Anko's desire to see justice done to the monster. One of the bastard's earlier experiments had cost the life of her uncle, and though she was now outcast from the Uzumaki clan and the Azuki branch of it, that insult to the family had to be avenged. I hope we find her before she finds him though, the purple-haired Anbu thought as she leapt from tree to tree. Anko will likely try to kill him even if it costs her both their lives, and then I won't get my shot. She noticed something a few trees to the left, and she signaled her teammates to follow as she veered in that direction. When they arrived, they were greeted by a dark sight. Senei Jashu, the Tokabetsu Junin Mitarashi, Anko cried out, 4 pythons shooting out from her sleeves and grabbing hold of a man who appeared to be halfway sunk into the trunk of the tree. With a roar worthy of the giant tigers that lived in the forest of death, the mesh-clad girl swung her arms and ripped the man from the tree, hurling him against the trunk of another tree. "This is Anbu Neko to Anbu base," she whispered into her communicator. Orochimaru confirmed in training area 44. Junin Mitarashi currently engaging. Moving to assist, she leapt down to the tree where the other girl was rushing up to the trapped Sanin. Anko slammed her left hand against his right, before swinging her right arm around and impaling both of their hands with a kunai, pinning them against a tree. My, Orochimaru grinned despite the pain, "You really have improved, my little cobra." "Oh, you don't know the half of it, sensei," the girl replied, stressing the sarcasm in the word sensei. "I've had almost 10 years to prepare for this." She reached down and grabbed his left hand, her fingers manipulating his into a modified hubby seal. "Now, if you don't mind me using your left hand here." Ninpo. Sohasose no Jutsu. Ninja art. Twin snake self-sacrifice technique. Yugo had been silent to this point, but even she knew what this kinjutsu could do. "Anko senpai," she called out, landing on the branch with the 2 ninja. "Stay out of this." The serpent Kunoichi growled as she surged her chakra for the jutsu. "We're going to die together, sensei." "Ah, but I don't think that's going to happen, Anko-chan," he replied. "After all, this jutsu only works if there's 2 of us." Anko's eyes widened, and Yugo whipped around even as the Orochimaru Anko held dissolved into a pile of mud. The pair of Kunoichi were joined by the other 2 Anbu members, even as the real snake Sanin appeared a few branches above them. "Damn you," Anko growled, ripping the kunai that held her hand against the tree free and hurling it at the pale ninja. He smirked as he caught it with 2 fingers, before raising his hand up into a half-Hitsuji seal. Anko gasped, then fell to her knees as a surge of pain erupted from her shoulder. Yugo and her fellow Anbu moved around her protectively, even as Orochimaru laughed at his former pupil's plight. "Your curse mark still responds to me, my little cobra," he laughed. "Still, it's not you I'm interested in." "Are you here to assassinate Hokage-sama then?" Yugo asked, her hand on the ninjutsu strapped to her back. "What is your purpose here?" Orochimaru laughed. "I merely have an interest in a few of the competitors," he replied. "Some of my own subordinates are competing as well." He grinned. "Indeed, there are 1 or 2 I'm truly fascinated with. One was so impressive I even gave him my mark." "That's a foolish gift," Anko groaned. "He'll die, most likely." True, there is only a 1 in 10 chance he'll live," Orochimaru nodded. "Still, his breeding is superb. His body is also exquisite. If he lives he'll be the perfect vessel to succeed me." He stared down at the assembled nins. "I know you plan on stopping this exam. I warn you, if you do, then Konoha will be destroyed." His body faded from view as his voice echoed around them. "The exam must continue. There is still much that must happen." Yugo frowned behind her mask, before turning to the stricken Anko. "Senpai, can you stand?" she asked. At the girl's nod, she turned to her teammates. "Head back to headquarters and make the report. I'll escort Anko-sama to the tower." The other 2 Anbu nodded, before vanishing in a swirl of leaves. Anko looked at the purple-haired Anbu. "I was stupid, Yugo-san," she muttered. "I should have known he'd use Kawarimi. He isn't one of the Sanin for nothing." "Anko-senpai," the armor-clad girl replied. "Come on, let's get to the tower and get you looked at." The pair of Kunoichi vanished in puffs of smoke. Naruto stopped when he came to a stream near a clearing, smiling as he saw several fish in a nearby alcove of rock. A quick and judicious use of cage bunshin resulted in 3 nicely sized river trout for his team. He pulled out a scroll and sealed the fish away for easy transport. I gotta remember to thank Hayate-Nissan for teaching me this, he thought. He proceeded to fill both his and Sakura's canteens with water, and once finished turned to leave. Only to find his path blocked by 3 people he did not want to deal with. "Hello, cousin," Uzumaki Taro smirked. "Fancy meeting you here." Naruto glared at his cousin, but chose to not reply. Instead, he gazed over at the kunoichi of the group. "You must be Reika," he said, causing the purple-haired girl to scowl. "Yugo Ni-chan sends her regards. I know she misses you." HMMPH. "I couldn't care less what that traitor feels," the belligerent girl replied. "She chose to break with the Azuki and Uzumaki, so she's persona non grata with me." Naruto simply shook his head. "And you people wonder why Konoha doesn't like the clan anymore," he muttered, "to think I share the name. Sometimes it's a shame almost too great to bear." The boy in samurai garb frowned at him. "You will speak of the clan with respect," he ordered. His eyes widened angrily as Naruto laughed. "Oh please," he snorted, "the day I treat you with respect is the day I decide to quit being a ninja, and that is never going to happen." Naruto turned to the black-haired boy who appeared to be the leader. "Given that you know my name, it's only fair that I know yours now. Manners and all that, you know?" He had to resist scowling when he saw the boy's blue eyes gleam arrogantly. Is he really that stupid? He's actually going to introduce himself. The boy laughed. "Sure, why not?" he replied. "I'm Uzumaki Taro, heir of the Uzumaki clan." He pointed at Reika. "You already know Azuki Reika, from the Azuki family branch and a formidable user of both taijutsu and ninjutsu." Finally he pointed to the 3rd member of the group. "This is my cousin Uzumaki Konosuke, the best swordsman of our generation." "We are 3 total and complete idiots," Naruto interrupted, pulling out a kunai and hurling it at the bushes to the left. 3 forms leapt from said bushes, landing nearby. Naruto belatedly noticed that they were the team from Auto, and he frowned as he recalled Orochimaru also wearing an Auto Hite 8. He turned his glare back to the 3 members of his estranged clan, who were gaping at him. "You cannot be telling me you didn't notice them," he growled. "Are you really that green?" Reika scowled. "We don't need an outcast like you criticizing us, Teme," she shouted at him. Naruto rolled his eyes, pulling out another kunai and focusing his chakra. He winced as he felt a slight burn around his stomach. "Damn, what did that snake freak do to me?" he thought. HMMPH, and here I thought this was going to be a challenge, Dosu muttered. "They seem to be fighting amongst themselves." "That's the loudmouth from before," Zaku noted. "Is he a part of that clan?" "If he is, he doesn't act like it," Kin growled. "The Uzumaki clan is notorious for both their skill and their arrogance. This kid seems to be more concerned with the situation than his pride. I wonder who he is." Naruto noted this byplay, but filed it away for later. He kept on the black-haired boy. "A ninja never reveals more than is needed," he continued, as if lecturing the clan heir. Taro scowled, but was unable to interrupt as Naruto plowed on. "All you should have told me was your names. Instead, you revealed your importance to the Uzumaki, Reika-san's skills, and Konosuke-san's specialty. Now anyone who might have been spying on us, i.e. those 3 Auto Nin there, know what to expect and will be able to counter it." The 3 members of the Uzumaki clan almost gaped at that. Despite all that they had been taught by the council about this boy, his logic was undeniable. Naruto frowned at them, then turned to the 3 enemy ninja on his left. "I have a teammate who needs me," he said. "I don't have time to fight you, but I do have a question." Kin frowned, but stepped forward. "You answer mine, and I'll answer yours," she replied. "They called you an outcast? Are you a member of the Uzumaki?" "No," he replied, "they cast me out when I was 4 years old. They abandoned me for something that was never my fault." He stared at her, noticing the position her legs were in. "You're from Iwa, aren't you?" Kin gaped, but smirked. "I was born in Tsuchi no Kuni, but I am no Iwa nin," she replied. "I'm Auto, and that's all there is to it." Naruto shrugged. "Fair enough," he replied. "Now for my question. What did Orochimaru do to my friend?" If there was one thing Naruto truly prided himself on, it was his ability to stun people. While it was true his pranks were primarily meant to garner attention for himself, even if that attention was scoldings from Iruka-sensei and Yugo-senpai, and stern looks from Hokage Gigi. They also served the secondary purpose of giving him a reason to laugh at people who normally laughed at him. The 6 genin around him were all gaping at him stupidly would normally be very laugh-worthy, but Sasuke and Sakura-chan needed him. I know you know him, he continued. My teammate told me he had an auto hit A8, is he your sensei? Orochimaru-sama is our leader, the Otokage, the hunched-over mummy spoke. You said he did something to your friend. Who is your friend, and what did he do? I won't tell you his name, but that bastard put some sort of mark on his neck. The blonde replied, what did he do? A Juin, Kin muttered, but why? Tayuya barely survived getting hers, and she's older than the rest of these brats. Juin, a curse? The Uzumaki called Taro wondered, what would one of the Sannin want with the outcast's teammate? Well, at least now I know, Naruto replied, I don't have a problem with you 3, yet. If I come across that Orochimaru again however, well, I'm sure you can deliver a message to him. The Auto Nins nodded. Tell him, he's awakened the depths of the maelstrom. The 3 Uzumakis gasped at his words. What do you think you're doing, you fool? Taro shouted, Orochimaru is one of the Sannin, the 3 shinobi of legend. You just declared, blood feud, against someone of the Yondaime's level. I know who the bastard is, Bakayaro. Naruto shouted back. Yugo Nichan told me all about him, and don't ever compare him to the Yondaime. If you do I swear I'll shove my foot so far up your ass you'll gag on my sandal. Taro frowned. Know your place, outcast, he snarled. You've done something that could have repercussions for the entire clan. Last I checked, I'm not a member of the clan, Naruto replied. I was cast out, so the clan has nothing to do with my decisions. Right now, that bastard has hurt someone I've come to call a friend. I have very few, and I protect those few with everything I've got. When you can say the same, then I'll consider what the clan wants before I run my mouth. He punctuated this by pulling his eyelid down and sticking his tongue out at the dark-haired boy. Enough of this, Reika shouted, her hands flying through a seal sequence even as she leapt to stand on the flowing waters of the river. She ended with the Tori seal even as the waters began surging around her. Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu. Water release. Water dragon blast, she cried out even as a large serpentine shape shot up out of the water, circling around her before launching towards the Auto Nens. Naruto leapt away into the trees. I wish I could stay and watch this, but my team needs me now. He thought to himself, even as the shouts and cries of battle began to make themselves known. Still, I got a feeling this isn't going to turn out so well for my cousins. Zaku smirked as the water dragon rushed towards them, barely noticing that the orange-clad loudmouth had left. Oh please, he said, so outdated. Zankuha. Slicing airwave, his right arm snapped up and a rush of pressurized air mixed with chakra lanced forward, cleaving Reika's attack in two. The purple-haired girl gaped in amazement, and as such barely noticed the girl called Kin launching a volley of senbon needles at her. The white-clad Konosuke was the one who saved her, pulling his katanas from its sheath and disrupting the attack with a sudden pressure change. Nice move, the bandage-clad Dosu muttered. You've got some speed with that sword, just what do you call that move? It is the most basic technique of Iijutsu, the taller boy replied. Simple Batujutsu, I didn't even have to use my chakra for it. Just a plain old sword skill. Oh, I hardly believe that, Dosu replied. I know a good way to test it though. He shifted his cloak to reveal the silver gauntlet that adorned his right arm. My melody arm has many different abilities. It all depends on how I mold my chakra. He rushed toward the boy, who swung his blade around to block the punch. Fist met the flat of blade as a high-pitched ring echoed throughout the clearing. Konosuke grimaced as he felt his blade vibrate so hard he almost dropped it. I see, he groaned out, your weapon. It uses sound waves to disrupt its target's stability. True, Dosu replied. I can burst eardrums, shatter stone, break bones, and even liquefy my opponent's internal organs. So why did you not do so here? Because I had some suspicions about this blade of yours, the bandaged boy replied. You use a chakra Kohan no Tsurugi. Konosuke frowned, leaping away from the Auto Nin, sheathing his sword as he went. I have to admit, I wasn't expecting a sword that rare to belong to a genin, or that you could use it so well. You must be very skilled to utilize the sword's chakra storage abilities. Not surprising that he didn't reveal it, Kin shouted as she ducked a thrust kick sent her way by Reika. The Uzumaki clan is obscenely wealthy, so of course he'd have a rare weapon like that if he had any real skill. We may be wealthy, Taro spoke up, his hands flying through a seal sequence, finishing with the Ryu symbol, but we're also very skilled. Fuuton. Fuor Yu no Jutsu. Wind release. Wind dragon technique. Zaku's eyes widened as the winds picked up, swirling around the dark-haired boy and taking the shape of a dragon. That's a new one on me, he muttered, but it's no match for my Zankokuha. Super slicing airwave. The two blasts of chakra-enhanced air slammed into each other, ripping the ground to shreds. Long gouges appeared as dirt, rocks, and plants were hurled left and right, and each genin was forced to leap about to avoid being struck by debris. Kin and Reika leapt away from each other, both breathing heavily and sporting cuts and scratches. Kin's face bore a look that suggested that she was insulted, while Reika's was more a look of frustration. Your boyfriend says you're a taijutsu genius, Kin mocked, so where are those vaunted, chakra kicks, and open skills that I heard so much about when I lived in Tsuchi no Kuni? You're holding back, right? Reika frowned. Those styles of taijutsu are reserved for the main branch of the family. I'm an Uzuki, not an Uzumaki. HMMPH, no wonder I feel insulted, Kin replied. Honestly, I think that your outcast cousin would have been more fun to fight. She turned to look at her teammates. I think we've learned enough for Orochimaru-sama, don't you guys? Yeah, we learned they're a bunch of wimps, Zaku replied. Hey, I think Orochimaru-sama was worried for nothing, Dosu replied. He pulled a smoke bomb from his pouch. Make no mistake, Uzumaki Taro-san, he called over to the dark-haired boy, when next we meet, it will be far more unpleasant for you. With a quick toss, the smoke billowed out in front of the Uzumaki clan, and the three Auto Nin vanished from sight. Cowards, Reika shouted, come back and face us. Reika-san, that is enough, Konosuke muttered, they're gone. Reika growled while Taro smirked. They seriously underestimated us though, which means Orochimaru will underestimate the clan as well, he replied, so, the plan continues. Reika cheered her cousin's statement, while Konosuke cleaned his blade before resheathing it. I don't know about this, he thought to himself as the trio took to the trees once more. Something doesn't feel right. Was it because of how the outcast acted? Konosuke didn't like this feeling of foreboding crawling up his spine. He liked even less that it was his inferior outcast cousin who was causing it. There was much about the 44th training ground that Sarutobi Sudara didn't like. He wasn't happy that the giant tigers had never been successfully tamed so as to prevent the maulings of many Chunin hopefuls in past exams. He never cared for the flying leeches or the giant centipedes, especially that one year when a particularly promising kunoichi was found drained dry after having been abandoned by her teammates, said young men now spent their days breaking rocks in the prison quarry for their cowardice. What he disliked most, however, was how Anko had made the tower in the center of the facility her home, despite having an assigned apartment in the village. It shamed him to think that she was more comfortable isolating herself from the villagers so that she couldn't hear their words of scorn. Snake whore, traitor's pet, Orochimaru's disciple. Sarutobi was well aware of the stories that circulated around the village following Orochimaru's defection and Anko's subsequent questioning by Ibiki and the Anbu. He knew that some ninjas now made up horror stories, or worse, about how Anko served his traitorous pupil. It was not unheard of for parents to frighten their children into obedience these days with the phrase, if you don't behave, you could end up like that Mitarashi girl and get an evil sensei. Given Orochimaru's reputation, it could be an effective tool to enforce obedience, but not when it denigrated Anko like that. He stared at the dark-haired young woman as she sat on the couch before him, a medic nin checking her over to make sure there were no lasting side effects from Orochimaru's activation of her Juin. Behind her, Azuki Yugo and her fiancé Gecko Hayate, the third stage proctor gave the young special Junin looks of concern. On another side of the room, Katetsu and Azumo observed the monitors, watching the progress of several teams as they made their way through the forest or in the cases of Genin Cell 8 and the Suna team milled about the tower. So, he said that he would destroy the village if we stop this exam, the aged leader muttered, just what is my Bakadenshi planning? He said he gave the mark to a participant in the exam. Enko replied, I'm certain he meant the Uchiha boy. He was always obsessed with that damn Sharingan of theirs. The Uzumaki clan never cared for the Uchiha's dujutsu, Yugo muttered. Most of the clan jutsus are so chakra-intensive, even if the Uchiha did copy them, they could never perform them without passing out from chakra exhaustion. If there was any dujutsu that the clan despised, it was the Byakugan and the Jukin fighting style the Hyuga clan created for it. A gentle art that does the same damage as the Iji and Hyogi styles in the Uzumaki Ryu. Sarutobi acknowledged. Yugo-san, you told me once about the Hyuga heiress, Hinata, stalking Naruto-kun, correct? Yugo frowned. Despite being at odds with her clan, there were certain things that had been ingrained in her since childhood that she simply could not get past. One of them was an almost instinctual dislike of the Hyuga clan. She didn't truly know Hinata, but the fact that the girl was main house was enough to set the Anbu on edge. The girl's obvious infatuation with her cousin didn't help matters. True, but that's neither here nor there, Hokage-sama, the purple-haired girl replied. I'm more worried about Naruto's team, the Uchiha is on it. Orochimaru probably knows about Naruto-kun's burden. What if he came here for that? Doubtful, Enko replied. Orochimaru hates the Biju, he always told me that power like that should never belong to wild and uncontrollable beasts. He'd sooner try to directly assassinate you, Hokage-sama, than mess with the Yondaimi's seal. He'd never want to deal with the Kyuubi, even with his strength. He'd barely want to deal with the Ichibi, and even less the Nibi. Given his fear of death and the Nibi's powers, it's certainly understandable, Kotetsu spoke up. Still, he is one of the Densetsu no Sannin. That means he's at least as dangerous as one of the Biju. Regardless, we can't cancel the exam, Sarutobi muttered. Inform me the instant Naruto's team arrives, and have them all brought to me. If Sasuke is marked, we'll place a containment seal on him immediately until I can contact Jiraiya or Tsunade. The two of them should be able to counteract anything Orochimaru might have done. Yugo's eyes widened at the mention of the other two members of the Sannin. Hokage-sama, she spoke up, does Tsunade-sama know about? She's unaware of Naruto's connection to Arashi, the old man replied, but I will tell her once she arrives. I've sent Yamato to retrieve her. Hayate coughed, as he mentioned something, and, cough cough, Jiraiya-sama? He's where he always is, Sarutobi sighed. Pervert, Anko muttered, even as she grinned. At one of the more liberal bathhouses in the village, a certain white-haired old man sneezed. Unfortunately, this alerted the young lesbian couple, a short-haired blonde with a slim, athletic build, and a awkward-tressed beauty who gave new meaning to the phrase va va voom, since she had great VAVAs and a dynamite voom, to his presence. The pair of kunoichi proceeded to pummel him severally before utilizing a tag-team combo of Doden and Suiden jutsu to send him flying. Why can't we get any privacy, Haruka-chan? The awkward-tressed girl asked. Honestly, it's like the whole world's against us, Michiru-chan, the blonde replied. Sasuke groaned as he came to. A pleasant smell assaulted his nostrils, and an even more pleasant coolness covered his aching head. He opened his eyes to see Sakura and Naruto hovering about him. Sakura, Naruto, he groaned, what happened to me? We don't know much, Sakura replied, replacing the cold compress. All we know is that guy, Orochimaru, put some kind of curse seal on your neck. It really took you out. Yeah, you've been out for almost a full day, Naruto elaborated. Sakura took care of you while I scouted the area and caught us some fish. We're about 3 clicks from the tower, and it's still only the 3rd day. We can still pass, if you're up to it? I feel worse than after that mission in Nami, but I won't let this thing beat me, the Uchiha heir growled. Besides, you still have to tell us about this clan of yours. Naruto frowned. Yeah, about that, he muttered, I had a little run-in with them while you were out. Sakura snapped her gaze towards the blonde. What happened? She asked. They demonstrated how stupid they are, Naruto replied. I'll tell you about it later. Right now we should eat, then get to the tower so they can look at that mark the Habiteme put on Sasuke. Sakura's eyes twitched at Naruto's casual response. Habiteme? She asked. Sasuke smirked at his blonde friend. He's an enemy and a jerk who uses snakes, so, Habiteme, Naruto explained, what about it? Sakura just shook her head. Nothing, she replied, nothing at all. Sasuke was tempted to laugh out loud even if it was against his usual nature as he sat up, wincing as a sharp, stabbing pain made itself known around his left shoulder. Kami-sama, he breathed, his right hand grabbing the area and rubbing it. Gah, what is this thing? He noticed the concerned looks his teammates were giving him. It's painful, but not debilitating. He frowned as he thought of something. If this is some kind of seal, I wonder what it might have done to my chakra. Sakura frowned. Fuinjutsu isn't really taught much at the academy, she muttered. Nobody really wants to put the effort into learning it. It's one of the most difficult arts to learn. I don't know much other than the basic weapon and supply sealing techniques that they teach all genin. Naruto frowned. Fuinjutsu, that was a bitter subject with him. While he didn't know much about his particular seal, Gigi had been surprisingly tight-lipped about it. He did know that certain seals could be used to both augment certain things, or restrain and cancel out others. There's only one way to know, he spoke up, surprising the other two. Try and mold some chakra. If that mark did anything to you, we should know before we head to the tower. But, Sakura started to protest. For all we know it's some kind of explosive seal or something. Naruto cut her off. If we wait to find out at the tower and it is, then Sasuke could indirectly take out not only us but the rest of the testers and even our senseis. Sakura's eyes widened as she caught on to what her teammate was saying. It's a risk, but it's one we have to take. Sasuke snorted. The 10th question? He asked. Both Naruto and Sakura had to chuckle at the irony of the situation. He was right after all. Both of you, back away. If it looks like something's wrong, then I want you to get out of here. Head for the tower and get Kakashi-sensei, the proctors, anyone. He stood up, his hands coming together in the Taurus seal. I'll try activating my Sharingan. It's not nearly as draining to me as it is to Kakashi. How will we know if it worked? Sakura asked. If I haven't blown up, after 10 seconds, come check my eyes, he replied. Now, move. The other two nodded, leaping away into the other side of the clearing. Sasuke took a few deep breaths, trying to cleanse his mind as he began focusing his energy into his hara. Slowly, far more so than was usual for him, he began to feel the buildup of his chakra. He could already tell his control was out of whack, but it wasn't completely hampered. He began feeding his chakra to his eyes, closing the lids as the buildup reached its peak. Almost there, almost, now, he thought. Sharingan, he cried out, his eyes opening into the red wheels with two black tomo around each pupil. For a moment, all was as it normally was. Then, hell broke loose. Kabuto watched the group from above, his teammates beside him as the purple aura began surrounding the Uchiha heir. So, Sasuke-kun survived the application of the Ten no Juin, the silver-haired medic Nin noted, and his chakra. I doubt even Orochimaru-sama was capable of such an output at that age. Like it matters, one of his masked compatriots replied, he's just going to wind up a shell in the end anyway. He's little better than Sound 5. And yet I seem to recall Jirubu-kun, the weakest of that group, beating you to a pulp the last time you met. Kabuto replied, do remember your place, Masumi-kun. I gotta agree with Kabuto, the second masked figure spoke. I'm not even sure my chakra Kyuin no jutsu, chakra absorption technique, could drain that much. The kid's a monster. I always thought you were wuss yoroi, Masumi replied. Quiet, Kabuto muttered, stopping the argument before it began. It looks like Naruto-kun is up to something. Naruto walked forward, even as his instincts practically screamed at him to run. He gazed at the figure before him with obvious concern, and more than a little trepidation. Sasuke's body was covered in black, flame-like markings. The tomo of his Sharingan were spinning widely, and his breath was coming out in deep, gasping heaves. His chakra was strong, so strong that it was visible, wreathed around him like purple flames. Sasuke-kun, came the weakened voice of Sakura. What? This power? The Uchiha muttered. It feels good. The last came out as a whisper, but the intensity of it made it seem almost like a cry of triumph. Sasuke, that's enough, Naruto muttered, his left hand clenching into a fist. Something's wrong. Look at yourself. The Uchiha smirked. What's wrong, Dobi? He asked. This mark, it's made me stronger. Are you jealous? His words started out as a whisper, but ended in a vicious snarl. The orange-clad genin frowned. Listen to yourself, he replied. Think. Why are you acting like this? His hands clenched tighter, and he felt his body tensing up, as if preparing to strike the first blow. Sasuke-kun. Both genin blinked as a form appeared behind the manic Uchiha, wrapping its arms around him. It took only a moment for the two to realize it was Sakura. "Please, stop," she whispered, "you're scaring us." Sasuke seemed to frown, and Naruto tensed his body again. Then, to his surprise, the red eyes darkened into the familiar black of his rival, and the marks began to recede back into the original seal. "Well, that was anticlimactic," Masumi muttered. "On the contrary, it was most enlightening," Kabuto replied. "Most who survive the seal application process go berserk the first time it's activated. Sasuke-kun was able to control it, and even force it down. That proves a stronger will than Orochimaru-sama anticipated." "Hey, having a pretty girl press her boobs into his back was probably what did it," Misame countered. "She ain't exactly well developed, but she does have some stuff upstairs. I wonder how she'd like my special techniques." "We're not here for you to grope schoolgirls," Yoroi replied. "Besides, I thought that the blonde from the rookie group was better." Kabuto sighed as he listened to the two perverts discuss their lolicon fetish regarding the two kunoichi. "It seems, Orochimaru-sama, that you might have underestimated your chosen vessel," he thought as he and his team leapt away. "Still, I'm more concerned with the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Something about him is different." He suddenly smirked to himself. "Perhaps I can save you some trouble with him. I'm sure Sasori-sama and Zetsu-sama would be most interested in learning about this boy." He kept his laughter to himself as they approached the tower. Sasuke blinked as his mind cleared, and he felt the pressure of Sakura on his back. "Sakura," he muttered, "I'm all right now." Sakura continued to hold him, even as he turned to look at Naruto. The blonde seemed to be pained by his crush's actions, but nevertheless, he smiled. "You started to worry me there, Teme," he spoke up. "That mark is definitely bad news." Sasuke could feel the lingering effects of the mark throughout his body, and in truth, it felt good. "It's addictive," the Uchiha Saiyan replied. "I can feel it, it's like my chakra was boosted more than anyone else's I've ever felt." Sakura frowned, then moved around to face Sasuke. "You shouldn't use it," she said. "It's evil, whatever that chakra was. It wasn't you, Sasuke-kun. You could lose yourself if you use it again." "Naruto, is ramen all you ever eat?" Sakura asked, frowning at her hyperactive teammate. "No, I also like eggs," he replied, "especially when they're boiled and added to my ramen." "I give up," the pink-haired kunoichi replied. Sasuke smirked, then turned to Naruto. "You still have the scrolls, right?" he asked. Naruto nodded, patting his hip pouch. "Okay, let's go. The sooner we get there, the sooner we can get our injuries checked out. I'd like to go into the next test fresh." "You got that right," the blonde replied. Sakura nodded, and the trio leapt into the trees, headed for the tower and their next exam. Sakura was very apprehensive as the group approached to the tower. When she had first become a genin, it was in the hopes that she could eventually prove to Sasuke that she was worthy of his respect, and possibly love somewhere down the line. She knew that these notions were childish and somewhat naive, but she was still a child herself. The journey to Nami no Kuni was an eye-opener for her. She had seen death and suffering, things she had read about but never fully understood. Yes, she knew how painful teasing was, but it was nothing compared to genuine hardship. She had helped to dig Zabuza's and Haku's graves after the battle, it being the first time she had ever been so close to dead bodies. She had felt her heart shatter twice on that bridge, first when she thought that Sasuke had died, and again when it turned out that he was actually alive. Granted, this was a good shattering, but it was still jarring to her. When Kakashi-sensei had given them this opportunity, she had wondered whether or not she should hand in her commission as a ninja. She was ashamed to admit it, but the very idea of delving deeper into this shadow world that she had become a part of terrified her. Up until now, she had never thought that she would have to actually harm people, or do things that would send any normal person running for the hills. Surprisingly, it wasn't Sasuke that convinced her to take the chance, it was Naruto. Despite her dislike for the blonde-haired idiot, she had noticed how hard he tried. She saw how no one, not even herself, she was ashamed to admit, ever gave him a single bit of help, other than that Enbu lady who seemed to care about him, a cousin, maybe. Sure, she knew about Hinata's intense crush on him, but that girl was so pathologically shy that she could never say more than a word or two before turning into a tomato. Naruto was constantly trying to find things out on his own. She had originally thought his life was an ideal one, no parents to boss you around, no siblings to annoy you. She herself was an only child, but she babysitted often enough to know how annoying brothers and sisters could be. It wasn't until Sakura had talked to Sasuke that she finally realized how painful it was not to have a mother or father to come home and cry to. She wondered now which of the two of her boys had it worse. Sasuke's family had been slaughtered, and he had seen it happen, but at least he had the memories of his family loving and caring about him. Naruto, from everything she'd seen so far, he'd just been abandoned. If his family could do that to a child, what kind of monsters were they? Meh, Sakura-chan, Naruto called out, disrupting her thoughts. Look, we're here. The pink-dressed girl looked up to see the tall red building looming over them. She unconsciously let out a sigh of relief. Whatever her problems, she knew she could count on Naruto and Sasuke to help her through them, and she would help them achieve their goals. No matter what, the group stared at the strange sign with a mixture of curiosity and frustration. The frustration was mostly on Naruto's part. What the heck does this mean? He shouted, causing his teammates to wince. The trio of genin were staring up at a large mural inside the hall that they had just entered. Parts of it were missing, and it kept talking about things like, gain knowledge, and, run the fields. Maybe it has something to do with the scrolls? Sakura asked, rubbing her left ear to try and rid it of the ringing caused by the blonde's shout. The proctor lady did say it that we shouldn't open them till we got to the tower. Maybe they complete this message? Sasuke frowned. But what if we're not supposed to open them at all? She did say that this was a test of how we handled confidential information. Just opening the scrolls now seems like a waste of time, he countered. Naruto pulled the two scrolls from his hip pouch and looked at them. I dunno, if delivering the scrolls was all that was needed, then why isn't anyone here to pick them up? He asked. I think Sakura-chan is right. We should open them up. Sasuke found he couldn't argue with that, so he nodded. He reached over and took a hold of the Kai scroll while Naruto held onto the 10 scroll. The raven-haired boy reached into his thigh pouch and withdrew a kunai to slice away the tie keeping the scroll wrapped. Wait, Sakura cried out, causing the two boys to wince. They turned to hear with questioning gazes, and she blushed. Sorry, she said, but I think we should open them at the same time. If the whole point was to get both scrolls, then it would make sense that they go together. We could trigger a trap if we open only one. Naruto and Sasuke looked at one another, then nodded. Brilliant as ever, Sakura-chan, Naruto grinned at the girl, say. I am not going on a date with you after this, Naruto, the pink-haired girl growled. Just checking, the shorter boy replied, cowering back slightly. Sasuke smirked at the byplay, before looking at Naruto. On the count of 3? He asked. The blonde nodded, pulling a kunai of his own out. 1, 2, 3. They shouted together, slicing the bindings and opening the scrolls. What the? Sakura muttered, staring at the characters written on the paper. Those symbols, call forth, man. Shimata. Sasuke cursed, toss them away, it's some kind of summoning jutsu. He hurled the Kai scroll forward as Naruto did the same. The scrolls landed, crossing over each other, and a billow of smoke arose from the seals. When it cleared, a young woman stood before them, dressed in the standard Anbu armor and wearing a cat mask which she proceeded to unhook and remove from her face. Congratulations, she said, you three have just passed the second stage of the Chunin exams. Naruto gaped at the figure, then grinned widely. Yugo Ni-chan, he shouted, rushing forward and grabbing the girl in a fierce hug. Sakura and Sasuke stared, mouthing, Yugo Ni-chan, at the spectacle. I knew you'd do well, Naruto-kun. She smiled down at the boy she'd come to see as a little brother. She still remembered how distrusting his eyes were back when he was 8 years old. To see the open trust in them was staggering. Now, aren't you going to introduce me to your teammates? The blonde Jinchuriki grinned, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. Anyo, Sakura-chan. Sasuke, I'd like you to meet Azuki Yugo. She's a member of the Azuki, the branch family of the Uzumaki clan. Yugo smirked. And an outcast, just like Naruto-kun here, she elaborated. So, she's your cousin, Naruto? Sakura asked. How come you live on your own then? Shouldn't you be staying with your relative? I'm an ANBU, Sakura-san, Yugo replied. I'm rarely at home, or even in the village long enough to watch over the Gaki here. Gaki? Why you? Naruto growled, even as the purple-haired girl ground her knuckles into his skull. If you're a member of Naruto's family, then what about those other three? Sasuke asked. Naruto said he met them in the forest. Yugo frowned. Uzumaki Taro, the current clan heir, Uzumaki Konosuke who studies Kenjutsu, and my own little sister, Azuki Reika. She replied, unlike Naruto and myself, they're considered full members of the clan. Naruto and I are outcasts, Naruto for something that wasn't even his fault, and myself because I favored my village over my clan. Naruto frowned. Those three, no offense, Nichan, but they're idiots, he spoke up. They revealed almost everything about themselves to me when it was obvious that people were listening. Chalk it up to inexperience, Naruto-kun, she replied. The only missions those three have ever done have been in the capital city of Hinokakujin. How the heck did they make the qualifications for the exam then? Naruto asked. I don't know, she replied. Then she smiled. I do know that when they got here about an hour ago, Ebisu-san was the one to greet them. Naruto laughed. Ebisu grimaced as he led the arrogant trio through the tower to the chambers that they would be using until the next stage. His patience, already tried by having spent the previous evening with the honorable grandson, was wearing thin at the constant barrage of questions from Taro. What is the outcast capable of, Ebisu-san? The dark-haired heir asked. You mentioned in your correspondence with the council that he had achieved something that should have been impossible. You praised him in the last letter, when up until that point you had nothing but disdain. I have recently been given cause to change my mind about that, Taro Dono, the Tokubetsu Junin replied. Naruto-san was an almost total loss as a shinobi even with Yugo-san's additional training, but in the last few months he has begun to transform into a formidable genin. Reika snorted, running a hand through her purple tresses as they continued to walk down the corridor. If he's so formidable, why the hell does he wear that ridiculous orange jumpsuit of his? Doesn't he know the first thing about concealment and camouflage? Ebisu had to stop himself from glaring at the girl. His position as the clan representative for the Uzumaki was tenuous, at best, given his recent changes in attitude regarding the clan pariah, and Reika was highly praised by both the Azuki branch and even the main house. Getting on her bad side, while undoubtedly fun, would only make things difficult for him and his two relatives in the village. Naruto-san wears those clothes because that is all he can afford, the bespectacled man answered. His genin pay, plus the stipend from Hokage-sama is used primarily to stock his weapons, food, and pay the rent on his apartment. He chooses practicality over fashion. Reika smirked. With that fashion sense, he'd be lucky to be a court jester back in the capital, she laughed. Reika-san, do not underestimate the outcast, Konosuke muttered. We still do not know what he is truly capable of. Yeah, she muttered. Taro just continued to stare at the back of his elder cousin, Uzumaki Ebisu, while they walked down the hall. You are hiding something, Ebisu, he thought, and I shall find out what. Kakashi, Anko, and the Hokage stared at the mark upon Sasuke's neck with more than a little anger and fear. The Ten no Juin, Anko growled, her killing intent laying an almost oppressive feel to the room. Naruto and Sakura looked worried, while Sasuke glanced over in surprise. You know what this is? He asked. The wildly dressed Kunoichi nodded, her hand moving up to her own shoulder. It's Orochimaru's pride and joy, she explained. It gives the bearer an incredible boost of speed, strength, and chakra. While that happens, however, the seal eats away at your will. If you use it too much, you become his mindless servant. A puppet, with him holding the strings. Sakura gasped, while both Naruto and Sasuke growled. Damn that hubby freak. I'm no one's puppet, not his and not Itachi's. Mama, just calm down you two, Kakashi muttered. Thanks Naruto's efforts, we can contain this now and still let you compete in the exam. Just let Hokage-sama and I do our thing, and we'll have you ready to go. Anyo, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked. Can I talk to you for a moment before you help Sasuke? It's kind of important. The silver-haired Junin glanced at his loudmouthed pupil before nodding. Sure, Naruto, he replied. Anko, would you escort Sakura to some quarters while I speak with the Gaki? Hey, yeah, sure, the wild Kunoichi muttered. Come on Pinky, let's give the boys their special time. Could you not call me Pinky? The pink-tressed girl asked. Sure, Pinky. Sigh. So, Naruto, what can I do for you? The silver-haired Cyclops asked his most unusual student. Naruto's normally bright eyes were dark as he looked at his sensei. While he did admire Kakashi's strength and skill, and the man definitely had his respect, Naruto had to admit to himself that he didn't think of his Jonin instructor as much of a teacher. Still, he knew that if anyone could understand his problem, Kakashi was the most likely person. It's about my relatives, the blonde boy replied, practically spitting out the last word. Kakashi had expected this. Given his own feelings regarding family, Naruto's rage was easy to understand. His own father had abandoned him when he committed suicide, leaving him to fight for his own livelihood. It was difficult to admit, but even after Obito's words to him that day, and his own acceptance of his father's legacy, he still had some resentment towards Tsukumo. In his case, however, his father was dead. Naruto's family, they had just left him behind. I ran into them in the forest, Naruto continued. I know it's wrong, but I wanted. You wanted to make them pay for all the pain you've had to feel all these years, Kakashi muttered, placing his hand on the boy's shoulder. Naruto nodded, not trusting his own voice at the moment. While it is true that those three genin are not the ones responsible for what happened to you, it is understandable why you would want them to feel what you felt. But, if you're going to say that that makes you no better than the Kyuubi, then shut up right now, the Jonin replied, almost snapping at the short boy. You may have wanted them to feel the same pain you felt, but you didn't hurt them. You kept that legendary temper of yours in check, and that's a sign of how much you've grown as a shinobi. Naruto looked up in shock, and Kakashi continued on that vein. I told you before the first test that I was proud of the three of you, but truth be told, I was proudest of all in you, Naruto. Naruto felt his eyes watering at that. Kakashi-sensei, now, go rest up, and focus on what comes next, the silver-haired man ordered. I'm going to help Hokage-sama seal up Sasuke's curse mark, and then we'll meet up for the next exam. Hi, thanks sensei. The energetic blonde replied, before rushing off after Sakura and Anko. Kakashi's uncovered eye lingered on the boy as he vanished down the corridor. Sarutobi walked up behind him, puffing on his long pipe. You didn't tell him, the elderly ninja muttered. No, Kakashi answered, shaking his head, how could I? At this stage, after how far he's come since that night. You think he'll handle it any better when he finds out in 2 days? I don't know. Sarutobi sighed. Well, what's done is done, he said. Now, let's seal up my foolish student's mistake, and prepare for the next round. Hayate-kun will proctor the third stage. Kakashi smiled. Well, at least Naruto will like that. So, you learned nothing from Ebisu? No, he was very tight-lipped about the entire situation, Taro replied, as he and his two teammates knelt before their sensei. We did not make contact with Azuki Yugo either. We do know that she has helped the outcast in training from time to time, but nothing can account for the rumors we have heard about his supposed strength. I should have known you'd fail at something so simple, Taro-kun. A new voice came from the side. The three Uzumaki genin turned to see a young woman leaning against the wall. She was dressed in a simple dark blue jumpsuit with black borders and piping along the seams, and a dark green chunin vest was worn open on her slim shoulders. Her pale blue hair was done up in a side ponytail, and her hite-8 was secured around her forehead. Her attractive face bore an unappealing smirk, and her shocking blue eyes seemed to cut into the Uzumaki air. Reika snarled at that. Taro-kun did not fail. She snapped at the other girl, there was no. When I want your opinion, I'll figure it out for myself, Azuki, the other girl replied, cutting the purple-haired Kunoichi off in mid-rant. Reika-san, please, do not disrespect the main family, Konosuke, ever the peacemaker of the group, muttered to the indignant girl. Kana-ni-sama, I do not need your opinion either, Konosuke-kun, the girl, Uzumaki Kana replied. That is enough from all of you, the sensei snapped, quieting the four before Taro could add his own opinion on the matter. It is regrettable that you learned nothing of the boy's skills, but for now it is of little concern. Take rest and prepare for the next stage. Hi, sensei, the three genin replied, bowing and walking out of the room. I expect better from you, Kana, the sensei spoke up after a lengthy pause. Kana sniffed. Since when is that any different from usual? She replied, standing and walking towards the door. You will show me proper respect, young lady. The blue-haired girl snorted at that. I speak only the truth, she laughed. After all, isn't that how you taught me to act? Oka-sama? 2 days later, Sarutobi looked over the remaining genin with a critical eye as he explained the purpose for the Chunin exams. His eyes swept over the newly sealed Sasuke with concern, before settling on his orange-clad teammate with equal concern. The boy was glaring at the hauntingly beautiful woman standing next to Kurenai, while her own electric blue eyes seemed to bore both into the blonde genin and himself with equal measure. Make no mistake, the oldest living Kage's voice rang out over the 24 Chunin hopefuls. You are fighting for the pride of your village, and for the pride of your countries. That, more than anything else, is the real purpose of the Chunin exam. His eyes landed upon the team comprised of Naruto's relatives, and he was forced to repress the urge to scowl. He had nothing against the trio personally, but the way they stood there, full of unearned arrogance and swagger, when not 5 feet away was a member of their clan who had had to fight for everything he had ever had, it sickened him. How far has that clan fallen since you left us, Arashi? He wondered. Cough cough, Anyo, Hokage-sama. A new voice came, as a pale, haggard-looking ninja wearing the standard Junin attire as well as a katana strapped to his back, appeared in front of the group. Naruto's eyes widened, and his face, which had been set in a serious, at least for him, scowl, broke into a large grin. Oi, Hayate-senpai, he shouted, causing the entire assembly to stare at him. Yugo, who stood behind Sarutobi, smirked beneath her mask, as she noticed the Junin with the dark blue hair to the left scowl at the boy. Akoff Naruto-kun, the sickly Junin greeted the smiling youth. I had a feeling you'd make it this far. Naruto smiled even wider. Oh, I ain't stopping here, senpai, he replied, I'm going all the way. Dat Bayo, what a disgrace, Taro muttered, loud enough for all assembled to hear. Naruto simply leveled a glare at the Uzumaki heir, before turning back to the front. Ahem, Hayate continued, clearing his throat, now, cough before we begin. So it continued, as Kabuto the strange white-haired kid from the first exam dropped from the running, and the first match was decided. Akado Yoroi vs Uchiha Sasuke. The match was interesting, if a bit anticlimactic. Yoroi's chakra Kyuin no jutsu caught Sasuke by surprise for a few moments, but the raven-haired Uchiha quickly broke free. From there, it was a simple matter of whose taijutsu was superior, and with a borrowed mule kick and cage buyo from Lee, Sasuke's Shi Renden quickly ended the fight. As Sasuke walked back up to his team, he took a moment to stop next to a shaking Lee. You still have me on taijutsu, Lee-san, he muttered, I know you were still holding back. I promise, when your match starts I won't use my Sharingan. That taijutsu is yours, I'll get stronger my own way. Guy and Kakashi both looked at the two young men with great pride, as Lee smiled and extended his hand. Yosh, Sasuke-san, Lee replied, I truly look forward to facing you again someday, when neither of us has any reason to hold back. Such a match would surely demonstrate the power of our youth. Right, the Uchiha Saiyan muttered, sweat drops forming on the back of his head. Naruto smirked as the dark-haired boy rejoined them. Nice fight, Teme, he crowed, but it seemed kinda cheap there at the end. You just make sure you give it your all as well, Dobi, he replied, besides, you're one of the people I want to fight the most. Naruto's mouth clamped shut at that, and for a moment his eyes seemed to water. Sasuke had just given him what he had sought after more than anything else save the title of Hokage, Acknowledgment. Oh, I'll win all right. Dat Bayo, the blonde grinned, as the raven-haired boy smirked back. Boys, Sakura muttered, even as Kakashi shook his head. The groups turned to the screen, as the second match finally came up. Uzumaki Konosuke vs Sabaku no Kankuro. The sword-wielding youth calmly walked down to the arena, his mind already focusing on the task ahead. His face was set in a cold mask, and his blue-gray eyes were like flecks of steel. His opponent, the black-garbed Suna Nin Kankuro, smirked as he looked at the sword strapped to Konosuke's side. Huh, he said, and here I thought this was supposed to be an exam for shinobi, instead, I'm fighting some wannabe samurai. I'm almost insulted. Konosuke frowned. I am a shinobi, he replied, though I will admit, I am not all that skilled at ninjutsu and genjutsu. As for taijutsu, regrettably, though I am of the main family of the Uzumaki, I am only tolerably proficient in the family style. He drew his sword with a flourished motion, his chakra already flowing through the blade as well as his legs. My true talent is indeed Kenjutsu, and that is more than enough for someone like you. Kankuro laughed. So you're a close-range fighter, he chuckled, and you think that's more than enough? Kid, I'm so gonna enjoy this. He slung the wrapped bundle off of his back, dropping it to the ground with a loud thump. You say your taijutsu sucks, huh? Well, let's see just how poor you are. Hayate, standing near the Hitsugi statue, frowned. This Kankuro is hiding something, he thought. What's he planning? Konosuke frowned. If you are choosing to go hand to sword, then you are truly a fool, Sunanin, he muttered. I had heard that the Wind Daimyo had been seeking other villages to perform missions. I see why now, if Sanagakure's nins are so incompetent as to rush into a battle they cannot win. Up in the stands Naruto was frowning. He doesn't get it, the blonde boy muttered. Sakura and Sasuke were nodding as well. Shikamaru sighed. Mendosuke, he muttered, and here I thought Naruto was the idiot of our age. Ino and Choji gave their teammate funny looks. What do you mean? Ino asked. This guy may sound like an arrogant jerk, but he does have the advantage if that Suna kid attacks him with bare hands. I don't get it either, Choji muttered around a mouthful of chips. Barbecue at the moment. Just watch, their sensei, Sarutobi Asuma replied around his cigarette, and remember your lessons on deception. Cough cough cough. Second match, Hayate announced, Sabaku no Kankuro vs Uzumaki Konosuke, Hajime. Konosuke began spinning his sword in front of himself, the tip of the blade glowing blue as his chakra surged through it. As he spun the blade around, a spiral-like image began to appear. Kankuro frowned. What the heck, he whispered, even as he felt his opponent's chakra surge. Konosuke's eyes closed as the spiral completed, and he slowly brought the sword down to his right side, both hands now resting on the hilt. The entire blade began to glow blue, and for a few brief seconds that seemed to span an eternity, nothing in the arena moved. Still, the spiral image remained hovering in the air between the two combatants, almost as if it could sustain itself. Suddenly, the spiral flashed out of existence, and Konosuke's eyes opened. With a sudden burst of chakra, he shot forwards at his opponent, crying out as he did. Kenjutsu Higi. Uzumaki Yeba no Mai. Sword Art Secret. Dance of the Spiral Blade. There was a series of blue flashes as the blade stabbed forward, following the spiral pattern that had been visible only a few seconds before. Konosuke's arms were a blur, even as his steel-like eyes flashed with killer intent. With one last stab, Konosuke performed a spinning slash that launched the Sunanin up and back, landing on the ground behind his package with a heavy thud. The pen may be mightier than the sword, the white-garbed Uzumaki spoke, but the sword will trump the hand any day of the week. He turned to the proctor. I believe that the match is over, sensei. I shall rejoin my team. Heh 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 heh, came the voice of his opponent, who says we're done, sword boy. Konosuke leapt backward, turning his eyes to the bundle on the ground even as it unraveled, revealing the same ninja he had just finished annihilating. How? He muttered, before noticing a blue glow around the boy's fingers. He turned to the other, Kankuro, noticing it begin to stand, even as bits of pieces of the clothes fell off, revealing a brown-garbed monstrosity with 4 arms and 3 eyes. You can stab him all you want, Kankuro laughed, but that alone won't stop Karasu. I see, the brown-haired boy replied, one of the trademark techniques of Sanagakure, Kugetsu no Jutsu. You are a puppeteer. Kankuro laughed. You really must be green if you couldn't see my deception, he said. Hell, even that annoying orange punk up there saw it before you did. Konosuke frowned, sparing a glance at Naruto, who was smirking at him. A ninja's first task is to see underneath, the outcast called out to him. But then, I don't expect someone who hasn't done any real missions to understand that. The sword-wielding boy scowled, before leaping away while pulling a small flask from his doji. Since it seems I will be fighting something unexpected, he spoke, I guess I'll have to act accordingly. I was hoping to save this technique for the finals. Oh well, it is not to be. He opened the flask, pouring oil onto his blade. He flashed through a quick 3-seal sequence, and then blew a small puff of flame at the blade. The oil ignited, and the flames surged. Kenjutsu. Uzumaki Kaji Ken no Mai. This time you will fall. Sword Art. Dance of the Spiral Fire Sword. Kankuro laughed. Flashy and cool looking, I'll give you that, he shouted, even as he manipulated the chakra strings connected to Karasu, forcing the construct to move around, weapons shifting into position for assault. But the problem is that oil will only last for so long, and then the fire will die out. You won't have time to get through my defenses before it goes off, and even then, you still have to get to me. Konosuke smirked. The fire will die out? He asked. Now, what makes you think that the fire will die out? As Konkuro's eyes widened, he laughed. Indeed, the oil and that small Kaiden jutsu were simply catalysts to start the dance. Once the fire ignites, all it needs to keep going is chakra. Konkuro frowned. So that should mean you'd have to cancel the jutsu even faster, he muttered. Something like that must eat up chakra faster than a school of piranha eating a cow. The Uzumaki swordsman shook his head. That would be true, if not for my sword, he replied. My sword is like a chakra storage battery. I've had it by my side since I could walk, slowly filling it with my chakra. Like certain seals, this sword can compress the chakra, building it up until I need to use it. All it takes then is a small jutsu of any elemental type to activate its powers. Konkuro's eyes widened at that. That's right, Suna Nen. Kaji Ken is but one of several elemental dances I have, not that you'll see the others. You will fall here, Karasu. Konkuro shouted, the puppet surging forward, arms snapping out to launch a volley of kunai at the sword-wielding youth. Konosuke surged his chakra to his legs, leaping above the projectiles, spinning around to slash at the puppet, only for it to dance out of range. The battle had only just begun. Sakura glanced at the kunais now littering the ground. She saw some kind of black ichor dripping off of several of them, and she gasped. Those kunai, they're drenched in poison. She spoke, horrified at the thought. It makes sense, Kakashi explained. Kugetsu no Jutsu is a mid-range fighting style, but even with a sturdy puppet, it can be overcome rather easily. Most puppeteers add special weapons and poisons to their creations. More often than not, a puppeteer will have a knowledge of poisons rivaling that of a fully trained medical ninja. That Suna Nin has been taking this match seriously since the very start. Hyuga Neji, the silent teammate of Rock Lee, spoke up. That Uzumaki boy underestimated him from the very beginning. Several feet away, Azuki Reika laughed. At the looks from the other people on their balcony, she spoke. Konosuke never underestimates anyone, she said. He deliberately makes people think he has. That Suna Nin has no chance in this fight. How do you figure that? Tenten asked. Because Konosuke could have finished this without the Kaji Ken no Mai. Taro spoke up, not looking away from the fight. Even as his sensei stiffened behind him. Konosuke only uses his elemental dances when he wants to make a statement. So far all he's stated is that he's an idiot, Naruto growled, also not looking away from the fight. He felt a pair of eyes boring into the back of his head, but he chose to ignore them, intent on watching the match. He's gonna lose. Dat Bayo. Konkuro frowned as he made Karasu dance away from the fiery sword yet again. I hate to admit it, but this kid is good, he thought as his puppet launched a volley of needles at the boy. Only for him to whip his blade around and deflect the poisoned projectiles. I've already had to reveal so much of Karasu's workings to this crowd. I was hoping to save them for the plan, but I guess I'll have to use them now. Konosuke glared at the Suna Nin, noting his fingers moving in a complicated pattern. He's gearing up for something big, he thought. I had to end this now. He began surging his chakra through his blade, increasing the heat and power of the flames around his sword. He began to spin in place, the flames circling around him as he concentrated on his plan. Now, Konkuro shouted, even as Karasu split in two, the legs and lower body separating from the top and arms as a second head emerged, its mouth opening and revealing a cannon-like interior mounting. The top half swung its arms forward, launching a new volley of poisoned kunai, even as Konosuke called out his technique. Kaji Ken Koudan. Ryumai. Fire Sword Second Part, Dragon Dance. He finished his spin with a powerful double-handed forward slash, a surge of flame leaping from the blade, catching the kunais in its wake and hurling them away. The wall of fire caught the upper half of Karusa, knocking it away, even as the lower half launched a small sphere that exploded at the boy's feet, a cloud of gas flowing up and into his lungs. Poison gas bomb, he though, as he slumped over. Konkuro leapt away from the flames, bringing the lower half of Karasu around to aim a blade at the stricken boy's throat. "You got some skills, punk," the black-garbed boy chuckled, "but for a skilled puppeteer, using 2 puppets at once is a piece of cake. Now, yield. I have the antidote to that poison. Surrender, and it's yours. I, cough, will not, bow, to cough such filth." Konosuke growled. "HMMPH, fine," Kankuro frowned. "Seems like the spoiled samurai wannabe wants to die, honorably. Well, I got a newsflash for you, sword boy." He bent down, whispering into Konosuke's ear. "We're ninja, we don't do honorable deaths." Hayate interrupted them. "Shosha, Sabaku no Kankuro," he said, before launching into his own coughing fit. "Kankuro-san, please hand cough me the antidote." Kankuro shrugged, before tossing a small packet to the pale Junin. "Steep it in some tea and have him drink it," he instructed. "It'll taste like crap, but it'll purge the poison from his system. He doesn't deserve the honor of dying by my poisons." He gave the kneeling boy another glare. Idiots who don't know when to quit are usually the first to die on the battlefield. With a few quick motions, he had Karasu reassembled and rewrapped, before he shinned back to his waiting teammates. Konosuke was led out by the medics. Reika scowled as her cousin was carried out by the attendees. "How?" she growled. "Konosuke is the best Kenjutsu student in all of our clan." Taro frowned at his cousin's outburst. "Calm yourself, Reika," he berated the shorter girl. "Konosuke made a mistake when judging that Tsuna nin. As pathetic as that is, he still surpasses many of the others here." He let his gaze fall upon Naruto, as well as the pair of Hyuga present, though they lingered on the girl longer than was necessary. Behind him, Uzumaki Kagura was frowning, but for a different reason. Though her eyes were not upon him at the moment, her thoughts were focused on the orange-clad form of her son. How could they let him become a shinobi? She wondered, as the computer began cycling through names once more. Even if he has skills, what of the beast inside him? To allow him to fight would allow the Kyuubi to influence him. "Sarutobi, what have you done?" After so many years, it was easy to ignore the voice inside her asking what she had done as well. The computer cycled through the names, before finally settling on a new pair. Kinuta Dosu vs Aburame Shino. The strange genin from the village of Otto leapt down into the arena, even as his opponent walked down the stairs at a far more sedate pace. "Anyo, Shino-san," Hinata spoke, "do your best." "Yeah, kick his ass, Aburame." Kiba laughed, Team 8 sweeping the prelims. "Now that'd be cool." Shino sighed as he continued into the arena, his eyes staying locked onto his opponent. The bandaged-wrapped Otto Nin was rubbing the strange device attached to his left arm. His family was already reacting to it, especially his queen, Sachiko. They didn't like the strange noises coming from it. Otto indeed, he thought, as the sickly proctor made the announcement. Aburame Shino vs Sochin Dosu, Hayate muttered, "Hajime." "Huh, so I get some no-name ninja instead of that Uzumaki punk," Dosu muttered, his hands coming together in the Habi seal. "I guess I'll just have to make this quick." Shino made no reply, even as his Kakaichu began flowing in waves out of his jacket, surrounding him in a fog of black and moving legs. "You would do best to not underestimate me," he replied quietly. "Like so many things in the life of a ninja, there is more to me than meets the eye." Dosu's one visible eye widened at the sight of so many bugs. "What the hell, what are you?" he growled out. "A shinobi," was the only reply. The trenchcoat-wearing genin thrust his arms forward, the sea of insects hurling itself at the bandaged genin. Dosu leapt back, his hands flying through a quick seal sequence. "Habi, Tora, Saru, Inu, Habi. Ninpou. Doku o Tioken. Ninja art. Poison sound fist." His chakras surged, a visible distortion wave pushing through the air and impacting against the multi-legged army storming towards him. The swarm seemed to pause, then began scattering wildly about the room. Shino's eyes widened behind his glasses, even as he leapt away from his competitor who swung his fist in a wide arc that ended at the ground. That was sloppy, he thought. Why would what? He vaguely noticed his peers gasping as he fell to the ground, his stomach emptying its meager contents. His vision blurred, even as he glared at Dosu, who had paused his assault. "Just now feeling it, aren't you?" the Otto Nin spoke, his voice ringing painfully in Shino's ears. Sound waves. They can disintegrate stone, heal wounds, or even disrupt the inner ear. He knelt down. Your insects are no exception. Confuse them with a burst of noise pollution, and it leaves you open. Shino focused his mind through the pain, and he began tapping his fingers in what looked like a random pattern. He forced himself to his feet, before motioning to his family to reassemble. Dosu frowned, before raising his arm and flicking a finger against the metal of his gauntlet. A sharp ringing sound echoed through the arena, causing several people to wince in pain, while Shino groaned as the full force of the sound wave impacted against him. "Give it up, punk," Dosu growled. "I could have beat you from the very start." He raised his hand again. "This time I'll use a tone that'll make it seem like you're being shredded by a saw. I shudder to think what that'll do to your bugs." "You won't get the chance," Shino muttered, as the insect surged forward again, spinning around the surprised Nin in a miniature tornado. The buzzing of the insect seemed to grow louder and softer at random intervals, almost as if the Kikai were all talking at once. Dosu felt the bugs begin to crawl on his body, and he quickly flicked his fingers against the gauntlet in a 3-tap sequence, creating a set of tones that caused Akamaru, Kiba, and Naruto up in the stands to wince in agony, while the Oto Kunoichi kin also winced. The Kikai seemed to take great offense at the strange tone, and large numbers of them circled around the strange device, covering the holes and biting into the skin underneath. "Erg!" Dosu screamed, as several of the poisonous Kikai bites began to burn. Even as he screamed, he could feel himself growing weaker. "My chakra," he thought, even as he saw the Aburame boy straighten up. "You must feel it now," the quiet boy muttered, his voice penetrating the swarm's buzzing. "My Kikai feed off of chakra. While they block your weapon, they also leech the chakra from you, leaving you open." "How?" Dosu whimpered, as the bugs continued to drain his strength. "When I was tapping my fingers," the sunglassed boy replied, "insects do communicate through sound, but that isn't the only way. Bees, for example, can communicate information to their colonies by dancing in a particular pattern. My Kikai can do the same, and I can talk to them by simulating the dance by the rhythms of my fingers. They feel me tapping in a unique pattern, and they know what to do." Shino smirked behind his jacket as Dosu fell to the ground, his family returning to him. He briefly noted that Akane, one of Sachiko's more temperamental daughters, was not happy with the taste of the chakra she'd just consumed. He spared a glance at the prone form of his opponent. "You couldn't beat me," he said, "because you underestimated me." "Shosha, Aburame Shino," Hayate muttered. "This batch of rookies, just how strong are they?" he wondered. "Wow, now that was so cool." Naruto grinned, turning to Kiba. "Man, that Shino guy is strong, huh Kiba?" Kiba smirked at the loudmouth. "Oh yeah," he replied, "I'm glad I didn't have to fight him. Shino's got the best chance of our team at making chunin, but I'm still gonna beat him to it." "Ha, I'll beat you both to it, dog breath." The orange-clad boy laughed. "What'd you say, punk?" The Inuzuka boy growled, the pair going off into an insult match. "Anyo, Kiba-san. Naruto-kun," Hinata muttered, "Pete, please don't fight." "Ah, this isn't fighting, Hinata-chan," Naruto grinned, garnering a blush from the Hyuga girl. "This is practice." "What, practice?" Kiba muttered, confused. "Practice for what, you idiot?" "Practice for me humiliating you like I always do." Naruto grinned, earning several chuckles from the assembled genin. "Oh, I'm going to get you for that, you ramen-loving doby." Kiba growled. Naruto laughed, even as Hinata blushed at being so close to the boy she admired. Kurenai smirked at her wild genin's boast, even as Hinata blushed. She noticed the gaze Hinata directed towards Naruto. "Oh dear," she thought, "so that's why you always seem so distracted during our missions." She smiled. "Good for you, Hinata." Uzumaki Kagura also noticed the gaze. Hyuga, blushing at him? Her thoughts were interrupted as a new match was determined. Tsuchi Kin vs Sabaku no Tamari. Kin frowned as she stared at the taller Kunoichi. That weapon on her back could be a problem, she thought, even as the proctor started their match. "I have to make it through this round. Trying to figure out how to beat me?" Tamari asked. "I got news for you. Whatever sound technique you use, I can beat it." She pulled the black object from behind her back, letting the bottom edge hit the ground. "My Dai Tessin has 3 moons," I'm giving you 2 chances to give up. If I open it to the 3rd moon, you will lose. Kin glared at the girl. A Fuutin user, she thought, that means my bells won't work unless I can get them behind her. She slid into a standard Iwid taijutsu stance, uncaring of the frowns directed at her from the majority of the Konoha nin present. I'll just have to try something different. She leapt into the air, smirking at the Suna girl's confusion. Her hands began to blur through a sequence. Habi, Inu, Saru, Tori, Ryu, Hitsugi, Habi. Doden. Jishin Ken. Earth release. Earthquake fist, she cried, slamming her palm to the ground, a sudden surge of chakra leaving her body. A break appearing in the floor as the ground began to shake. Tamari leapt into the air, even as Kin whipped out a set of her senbon, hurling them at the blonde girl. The blonde frowned, whipping her fan open to the 1st moon and scattering the needles, causing a faint ringing sound to be heard. Her eyes darting to the source of the sound, locating several needles with bells attached. So, that's her game, she thought. Kin began another seal sequence as the Suna girl landed. Ending with the Tori seal, she called out a new jutsu. Doden. RetsudotenSho. Earth release. Split earth turn around the palm. A bunch of debris from the floor rose up and began circling around her opponent, even as she readied another set of senbon with bells. She flung them at the wall behind Tamari, as the Suna girl called out her own technique. Fuuton. Kazeitachink. Wind release. Wind scythe circle. The debris seemed to break apart into slices, the dust blowing away to reveal Temari's fan open to the 2nd moon. I'm onto you now, girl, she shouted, swinging the fan to unleash a gust of wind at the Otto girl. Kin cried out as the winds hurled her into the opposite wall, her body screaming in agony. She was sure at least a few ribs had cracked under the force of impact, and her legs seemed to cry out in pain as well. Tamari frowned as the dark-haired girl stood up. What are you standing for? She called out. You know I won't let you use those bells like that Dosu guy used that arm of his. You can toss all the senbon you want and you won't be able to hit me. You only have one more chance, then all 3 moons will be visible. I have to face that, Uzumaki, Kin groaned. He has to pay for my sister? What? Tamari asked. I'm from Tsuchi no Kuni, the dark-tressed girl continued. My sister was an Iwa Kunoichi? Naruto frowned. I don't like the sound of this, he wondered. She was raped and mutilated by the Uzumaki clan. The girl screeched. I was 4 when she died. She took a few steadying breaths before glaring at the Suna girl. I will make that clan pay. She glanced up at Naruto and was surprised to see a strange look in his eyes. Compassion and understanding? I can't say I know your pain, Tamari replied. I don't have a sister, but I do care for my brothers. Her eyes darted to Gaara, who continued to glower at the floor underneath him. I can tell you want justice, but you won't get it today. She calmly slipped the fan open again, this time showing all 3 moons. Still, you are pretty good. I don't think I'd have gotten as good a fight from the other Kunoichi here. Kin focused her chakra, trying to attach some strings to the bells, even as Tamari swung the fan. Fuuton, Kamitachi. The winds buffeted against the prone girl, her mind succumbing to the sweet darkness. So that's why she wanted to fight Taro and the others so badly, Naruto thought. Her pain, she misses her family. He frowned as he spared a glance at the blue-haired Jonin standing behind Taro and Reika. I guess, I can understand that loneliness. The computer began cycling through names again, and Naruto's eyes widened at the next match. Azuki Reika vs Uzumaki Naruto.